Kia ora, this is Julie from Wool on Wheels and Nadine Hura, author and friend. We are chatting today in Te Whanganui Atara, so I am down here visiting my brother, which meant I could connect with Nadine, who it feels like we've been friends a long time, but today was the first time we've met in person, so...
I know, I couldn't believe that actually.
It's a bit special. And I've got to thank my sister for that. I think that's a nice story. When I first heard of Nadine when my sister asked me to get some yarn for her because her brother had passed, and kōwhai was really special. So she wanted me to find yarn that reminded you of a kōwhai tree. So I sourced yarn that looked like a kōwhai tree.
So beautiful. Honestly, I think when there was just little offerings that people sent me at the time, which were so thoughtful, and that was one of them that always stuck with me. And I also didn't even know how Linda Jane knew that, that the significance of the kōwhai to us. And then she sent this wool, and I was just, I think I've told you, I just opened the package and then sort of rolled sideways and started to cry because wool is so this is why we're having this conversation, probably, is because wool and yarn and making is how you heal yourself, I mean, I know it sounds pretty cliche, but
no,
I mean, the people
who
are listening to this would be like,
yeah. No, well, that's just it. Like I picked up knitting. I learned when I was very, very young, but I learned when divorce happened in my past life, and I self-therapied with knitting, ballroom dancing, and walking. So that's
me too.
Ballroom dance, not the ballroom.
Roll. I did rock and roll. I did rock and roll after Darren died, which was crazy. Like, it seems like something so joyful inside something so horrifically sad that was happening to us, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to rock and roll every Saturday for like a year. But I also, when I separated from my husband, I took up crochet, and I knitted a crochet square every. How many did it? Well, I mean, I ended up with a blanket at the end of the year. Very colourful blanket, all made from scrap yarn.
Nice.
Yeah. What did you make?
I knit interestingly enough, charcoal and teal scarf.
Why charcoal and teal is special?
Because teal is now my signature colour, but it just goes way back.
Everybody knows
so people know that teal is my jam.
I love teal as well.
Teal will always take it home.
Yeah, teal and burgundy.
Yeah.
And also any kind of green. My daughter said to me the other day, she goes, do you know that all your jerseys that you make are green? And I was like, this is my excuse my name. This is my answer to that. I was like, I'm going to show you. And I'm knitting with burnt orange today.
Nice.
Sorry,
that's
forgot
okay.
we were filming.
That's all right. We can just sit for that. It's fine. Relax.
We haven't even started yet.
We're winging it. Can you tell? But the other, when I got back in touch, I wanted to interview Nadine ages ago.
That's right.
And this is sort of 2 years in the making.
Yeah.
So when I got back in touch, it was perfect timing because she has written a book, which she's very shy about. But
it's not
big
actually,
feelings.
Yeah, at the time that we're filming this, it's got about 10 days before it officially goes on sale, so I have been enjoying this about a month of just getting ready for what the reception might be. And so my shyness is a sense of hiding, because I feel like there is a moment where there will be some attention and questions and stuff, and being really honest with you, I'm like, I want to be able to stand with the book and stand alongside the stories. So I'm knitting furiously to get ready. No anxiety.
Oh, that's all right. That's what it's for. The bonus for me was that I got to start reading it early, and I haven't finished yet because it's not the type of work where you don't speed read this. Your writing is beautiful, and also very clever. I think what caught me in the first essay was that there's actually two stories happening at the same time, and they link together. And the way that Nadine has woven that together, I was like, oh, but what's happening? And they're like, oh, that's what's happening. So that was, I appreciate that as someone who likes to read a lot. So that was what was poignant about, that was what pulled me in the first one. And then reading through it, so even though I've known Nadine a few years now I feel like I'm really getting to know her.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
There's so much of her is in here. But I think the most standout thing to me so far, without having finished it, is just how one-sided my education has been around te tiriti o Waitangi. I wish something like this had been alongside, or like these stories were alongside, the basics that you learn about the Treaty of Waitangi when I was in school. Like, you learn the basics of colonization and how it would benefited society, but it only benefited one half of society. Because of course back then Māori were the dominant. And I didn't even learn about he whakaputanga until a few years ago. I never learned about that in school. So there's just so much there that I think, if anything, like, even though you read about it and learn about all the stuff that's neglected out of our history, I just have a deep sense of wanting to be better tangata tiriti. And that, but also that it's possible. Like, there is a way forward if you just open up your mind and your heart a little bit. So there's a deep sense of empowerment that's coming through already. So yes, I think I'll save the rest for anyone who wants to read the book. We'll link it up, so by the time this airs, you'll be able to buy it if you would like to. I'm happy to field questions about my perspectives and takes on the rest of the story once I get through it. And of course, you can always message Nadine. I'll pop her website details up as well.
It's it's interesting that you say that there's two stories being told in that first essay, and I think there's multiple stories and threads going through. But when I write it, I am writing the one that I know or can see on the page. Like, I'm following something. I don't see the second narrative until I'm finished either. It's quite an interesting experience, and I think that's because I'm writing towards the thing that I want to understand and don't understand. So when you talk about like the sort of educational elements that are in the book, I did want to write a book that shares information, but not from the perspective of someone who knows all the answers. And I think that's what I have held as much as anything. I'm wanting to understand what I didn't know and reclaim what I should have known and those kinds of things. And I think I'm doing one thing, and I go ahead and do that. That first essay is about Hank Dunn, who is this colourway that I met from Pawarenga, and I met him at a climate change adaptation research conference. This was 6 years ago, and times have changed. Times are rapidly shifting in the climate space. And to give you some context, I'd been awarded a little bit of money to write a story about sea level rise from a Māori perspective, and it's funny because I was like, I don't really know about any of that stuff, but I'll try and get the money. I wanted to write stories about climate change because I didn't understand this topic, this big subject that was like, extremely overwhelming and confusing, and I also felt stupid a lot of the time. I'd read the news and try to understand this, and I'm like, I don't get it. I'd buy books, try and understand, and I also wanted to like make a contribution to the stories that centre Māori voices as a contribution, to the dialogue and the discourse around climate. So I wrote this, pretty good at writing it. So I'm going to do all of this stuff, and then I get there and I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? Like, they've got these graphs and pictures and all of this, all these fancy experts, and I'm like, I don't understand what anyone's saying. And then I connect with this karawa, Hank Dunn, and he's like, what are you here for? And I was sort of could ask him the same question, I'm like, you don't look like those other guys, he tohunga, like he's an expert in his own right, but he also, he was smartly dressed and all of that, but he looked like a fisherman, he totally looked like a fisherman, didn't look like the suit and tie wearing kinds of scientists that were on stage. And so we connect, and I tell him what I'm doing. Oh, I'm writing this story about sea level rise. And he's like, oh, yeah, I've had heaps of shipwrecks in my life. And I'm like, he took me kind of literally. And he literally did tell me he has had 5 or 6 shipwrecks in his life. And over the course of that conference, he told me about each one. And it was so fascinating. He was a yarner. Great yarner, and I just listened to him, and in my notebook I'm writing down about all his shipwrecks, thinking, I don't think this is what I'm meant to be doing. But every time I try to pay attention, I'm like, I don't get it. It's really confusing, and what are we supposed to do? Policy, money, economics, emissions, melting ice caps. I'm like, that's very confusing subject, but this subject about surviving a shipwreck is fascinating, and I wrote it all down. And to cut a long story short, because the essay is about this, when I sat down eventually to write the essay that was published, it became this essay that was about resilience and survivance and Indigenous humour, and the ability to tell a story that connects with people that they'll remember, which is the key. I think the problem that I started to see with and over the course of writing many other essays was that science is important, adaptation is critical, data and graphs and all of that stuff. We need to understand, we need the information, the data's critical, but unless that information takes the shape of a story, people won't be convinced by it. We act on what we're convinced by, and we are convinced by story.
That's interesting. I had a sudden little flashback to another book that I haven't finished reading, which is Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer.
Yes.
When I can, I try and pick up the audiobook again, because she narrates it, and listening to her
it's a must read.
Must listen.
Yes,
I find her voice is so peaceful. But again, it was that weaving of science and storytelling.
Yes.
And the thing that got me, and it was such a she asked the question why, just around like what's with something to do with goldenrods and aster, which was the purple and yellow. I can't quite remember how she phrased it, but it was to do with that. Like, why do you always find them together in nature? And it turns out bees.
Yes.
It's the bees. Bees are drawn to purple and gold, and so that's why you always find goldenrod and aster together. But with just the way that she wove that together and the rest of her stories, it was just, anyway, so another a little random segue.
I love the way she makes, she normalizes, and almost that this is a spiritual connection, normalizes a language around the spiritual connection that we have between land and people, between, they're called resources. In a Pākehā scientific context, the materials that come from the earth are, inanimate or it's a language that is kind of devoid of a feeling. And what I love about the way that she writes is that she, with poeticism, and it's like Mary Oliver or poets who write through through the environment, it becomes kind of holy. When I listen to her, I feel like makes science come alive for me in a way that I'm fascinated by it, interested in it. But yeah, sitting in science class, and no offense to all the amazing people who understand chemistry and physics and biology and everything, but that language didn't make it come alive for me. But yeah,
it's all labels and assigning names to things, I guess. I hated science in school.
I love it now. This is the crazy thing. My daughter's studying, she's studying science at first year of university, and I'm like, explain cells to me again. I burnt myself the other day, and I'm like, look at that burn. And I was like, why does it hurt so much? And she explained the answer to me in scientific terms, about messages between the brain. And I was like, and how long will it take to repair, daughter? And she's like, well, and I can't repeat it because I don't remember
for
the
the
terms.
for the viewers, can we get a little visual? Just
This is my little burn. And yeah, she was like, and the cells are doing this, and they're gonna da-da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. I know it sounds ridiculous, but these things did not appeal to me until I started learning Māori, which is the crazy thing. And to bring it back to knitting, I didn't even start learning Māori. I mean, when I started learning Māori, I didn't think I was going to get good at it because it's so hard and overwhelming. Plus you add the shame and all of that stuff. 10 years ago, my reo Māori teacher, Kayako, in a rumaki reo total immersion situation, asked this pātai, which changed my life. She asked, he aha o koutou taonga tuku iho, what are your treasures passed down? And I was like, oh, depression and, mental illness and, alcoholism. And I was being funny, and we were all being funny in the class, and we all laughed at each other. But I went home that night, and I was like, that's sort of stink of me to think, to think in that way. And I started to think about things that my mum had tried to pass on to me. And of course, my mum had tried to teach me to knit, but I was terrible. And that week, I went to the $2 shop, and I was like, bought some knitting needles and some yarn, and started trying to learn to knit. And it's been 10 years since 10 years this year, and I'm proficient at knitting.
Yes, this is progress.
I can do short rows, I can pick up stitches, I can do colour work, I can crochet as well. I know about tension, and I know about this. It's so weird to hear myself. I would not talk about my reo ability. I still think I'm just occurring to me that I'm stink to myself about my knitting progress, about my reo progress, even though there are many things that I know in Te Reo Māori now too, and have even started to master the hangu. Not master, understand when to use the passive sentence and how, and the rules around that. But it's weird, I don't feel that same level of pride. I don't feel like I'm whakahihi, like arrogant in saying I can knit. I don't think people are sitting there going, wow, she's so full of herself, look at her, like I can knit. I feel like we're happy for each other when
no, I think,
but with Te Reo, why we shouldn't.
I guess because there's so much more behind it than the stitches.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You're
right.
like, it's, for me, like if I was to learn reo, it'd be like I was learning to knit. I'm embarking on new knowledge. However, if I was to start learning Mandarin,
oh really?
then I would be in the same boat.
Would you get?
I'd have feelings.
The hot.
Yeah.
You get hot.
Yeah. It's like I actually want to learn Mandarin, but the big barrier. I mean, because again, learning any language is difficult. Like embarking on anything is challenging, but because that's also my native tongue.
Important.
It's important.
You have reverence for it.
And then like not that there's the same history about learning Chinese as there is around learning Te Reo, but those I feel like there would be similar feelings in embarking on learning Mandarin.
And have you started on that journey?
It's a tonal language.
Yeah.
It's not like Japanese or reo where it's a set alphabet. In fact, I'd probably do better at learning reo because I learned Japanese and the sounds are the same. So my pronunciation, ace.
Yeah.
And then I already have a little bit of vocab, and because I learned Japanese in high school, I've already got the groundwork. And then with reo, I know a bit of kapu.
Yeah.
And where to put them sometimes, and I try and sprinkle them around. And then again the pronunciation, but because Mandarin is just like, it's this, for me it's like this big impossible mountain. So I'm like, okay, you know what, I don't have the bandwidth for that right now, so we're gonna go with the food.
yeah
The customs, embrace those things. Actually, I just picked up remembered that I have Sam Lowe, who won the MasterChef a few years back, who's got the cookbook Modern Chinese.
Oh, I don't even know about this.
Oh, okay. So I'm very excited because I went rummaging on his Instagram, and
oh my god,
he does how to shop at a Chinese supermarket, at an Asian supermarket.
Really?
Yes, so he breaks it down. It's great. So I'm like, right, it's time to embark on his account and
oh my gosh, that's great.
learn some things and level up my Asian-ness.
Yeah. That's so cool. That's so cool. Well, you always need an in, mate.
Yeah.
You know, an entry point. And for me, yeah, it's not kapahaka or singing. So, yeah, maybe it could be the kai, but I don't think so. I don't really like cooking altogether.
Fair. Oh, it's alright. Well, you can live vicariously through my attempts.
But I know what you mean. Yeah, it's something that when you hold it's so important. Is it almost like it's yeah, I don't want to say the word like tapu or anything like that, but you know, it's something that is so important. I mean, at least though you can go and have a total immersion experience. You can travel to China. You could.
Well, it's more because Singaporean, so
right.
born in Singapore, but then like the immersion is not that immersive because it's a colonized country.
So yeah, no, same.
So
same thing.
English is there, so it's
same
but different.
Same but different. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like here when because I keep saying, oh, I just need to go to a Māori country. I'm always like, damn it! And I did go to Kurereo for the first time recently, and that was awesome. But yeah, in Singapore, everybody
English. I mean, there are it is compulsory to learn Chinese when you're going through school, but you know, English is frequently spoken over there, but it is. You'll find that Singaporeans and Malaysians have a distinct accent to any other Asian country, and English is a bit easier to understand, but there is a definite Singlish thing going on. So when I hear, actually it's quite cute, Mum has more of an accent now than she did when we were growing up, because she's lived here like since 1985, and now it's much easier to speak internationally, which it was really expensive back in the 80s and 90s, and so it's often it's like English with sprinkles of Mandarin or Cantonese, whatever is the most convenient word at the time, but that sounds like home to me. But there's also a certain way of speaking English that I cannot imitate for the love of anything when I'm here. Like the closest is Canla, and it still sounds a bit wrong. But the second I'm in Singapore with the aunties, like when you're around it, you just slip into it.
It's so awesome.
It's funny.
It just comes back.
It just comes back. Like I would just imitate the way that they speak English, because that's how they're speaking to me. So it's the cannot.
Cannot.
Yeah. So like there's no like, I can't do that. It's can la or can't or cannot la. But it's just the whole sentence of I can't do something, or like it's possible or it's not possible is can or cannot la.
Yeah, cannot la.
Yeah, cannot la. So over there it sounds normal. Here my sister and I will often try and use it, but it just doesn't sound the same. It doesn't feel the same because it's the wrong setting.
Do you go back much?
We used to when we were little, but now not so much. Linda and I have both done a bit of international gallivanting, so Singapore is always built into the itinerary, but I haven't been back since 2014.
2014, yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, it's getting harder and harder to travel anyway.
Yeah,
but I think traveling for family connection reasons are, I think of people, the climate conversation is always about lowering emissions, and there's judgment around travel and stuff like that. I'm always like, it's so important though to maintain our connections and in person, and to return to our homelands is something that shouldn't be denied people either. Anyway, I'm just remarking that those things are difficult to navigate. You know? I just noticed this awesomeness. I was like, wow, that's a 2. You've got 2. You're holding 2.
Double stranding. Hang on, I'll just do a stand up so you can sort of see the full effect of what she's.
Sorry, I did.
No, we didn't. So we'll just do a. Just keeps on going. So it's I get good butt coverage with this jumper.
And what pattern is that?
I can't remember. It's a raglan, raglan concoction. But
because sometimes you get the raglan ones that they're too scooped, the necks are too wide, you know, and depending on what your tension's like, I've made a mistake, and I'm like, I want it to be closer to me.
Yeah, it was it's one where like I modded like I do, because once I know a pattern, I want to make more of them, but with all sorts of changes. That's a thing that I do.
Yes.
So the double stranding was just, I wanted to. This is like my 80s jumper. My nod to the
really
80s.
Like that.
I can't remember whose yarn is whose.
Whether yours is the darker one.
Oh no, like the dyers.
Oh,
I can't remember. I'm like, I'll remember. No.
So it's not a variegated yarn.
No. So there's 4 different. So the charcoal was the whole way through, as the main color,
nice.
and then I did a little bit of. So you can just see there that I've done some fading between the two colors there. So there's a few rows of fade before going. So there's the fade section, and that just brought it together, but then you've got the charcoal to anchor it the whole way through, so it doesn't so it doesn't actually matter, like you don't, because obviously like yellow, blue, purple, and then a motley collection at the end there. Oh, I do know who dyed that was Loren, and it was a gem in the holograms themed yarn.
Oh my god, gem in the holograms.
I know. So that's why it's my 8. That's why it's my
outrageous. Truly outrageous.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, do you know? I didn't know that this was a filmed interview, and so now I'm like, I would have worn my tea light sweater. That it's a color work it was like one of the most complicated things I've ever knitted.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Damn it. But that's okay. It's all right.
It's okay. You can send me a photo. I'll share it later.
Damn, I wanted to impress you all with my knitting, instead I'm not even wearing anything that I made today. Damn it.
Yeah, that was a bad translation part on me, because we were originally going to do this via Google.
I don't know why. Just you were podcasting and I was like, oh, it's audio. But yeah, Kate's pie. And also we're like, oh, it'll be half an hour-ish. There's only 3 minutes, and you know, like, what? We did the introduction, tick. Oops, it's time to wrap up now. No, it's so nice, because also, you know, I haven't done any interviews about the book, and I've been really nervous about, what am I going to say and all of that, but clearly
Also, look, we got the book out of the way early.
I think all interviews should be, we'll talk about the book, and then we'll get on to
business first, and then
because the book does talk about knitting. There's a sewing section. There's the whole section in the middle of the book. So the beginning of the book starts out talking about my trying to understand climate change, and then there's this kind of like break or juncture where I realize actually this is an internal thing. This is about myself, my whānau, my connections, and my connections to land. It becomes this really introspective journey, and then when I'm coming out the other end, so it's kind of 3 sections of the book, and at the end, the last section is kind of really explorative, almost a sense of like, I understand things differently, and I become really, it's the essays where I'm like just interested in stuff, and there's the essays about sewing and knitting in there. And so anyway, to bring it back to the craft. I don't know, the craft. Well, yeah,
crafty connections.
That most people, if I talk about the book, I think will be thinking about it or asking questions around the climate stuff. But I more want to talk about the craft and the art, and the
good stuff.
I was like, we're gonna have an interview where it's gonna be totally fine to go off on a tangent about knitting. Where we can have this conversation, and we can be not off kaupapa, but actually on kaupapa. Yeah.
Yep, that's me.
Yeah,
bring it together.
And the crafters and just all of the ringatoi. I think this is what I learned too, is that artists are scientists. you know. And probably too that scientists certainly need art to communicate the complexity of science.
Yes.
They need to be artistic and creative with that.
Or they need a translator.
Or they need us to translate.
Because I think that was what I found really helpful, is like, you know, you shared the big science words, but you also sort of created the layman's understanding alongside it. So even though I didn't understand the big stuff, I understand what you were trying to tell me about whatever topic you were on.
Yeah, like subjects like, you know, 1.5 degrees versus 1.8 degrees of warming, and what are they called? RCP pathways.
Oh yeah, you lost me at 1.5.
Yeah. I mean, that was, I think what I always had in mind was that I wanted my kids, and my kids are, you know, well, my youngest is 18, so I'm not saying really young kids, but I wanted teenagers at high school to be able to read it and not be put off or confused. And so that meant quite often, like, I understand actually the science is very complex, and when you simplify it, you can get into all kinds of trouble, especially risky, you know, there's risks, so it is important to be accurate. So there's this tension there, and for me, I just kept thinking, how much can I remove, how much of the complexity can I remove while still maintaining, you know, the truth of the thing, and for what purpose? To appeal to people who are not going to read more complicated stuff. So, you know, some people will read the more complicated science and get it and be interested in it and become convinced by it because their brains work that way. But lots of us are like, just break it down for me so that I basically know what I'm supposed to do. And it's those people, that's me.
Yeah, it's like it's going from like the fancy graphs that have all the numbers and the big words, and then like, right, okay, what's the comic strip version?
Yeah, like, okay, so what is recycling good? Or actually, I don't even talk about recycling, but it's these themes of it's so complicated that, you know, all these international agreements, for example, what do they mean when it comes down to my local, you know, my local council? What difference can I make in the massive scheme of things? It was that kind of, at the granular level, I was trying to make it make sense to us who have who sense and understand that we have relatively little power to influence those big systemic issues, at the same time as feeling dissatisfied with an answer that says, you know, basically, well, F it, then I'm not going to do anything. Lots of us are like, no, and that's not acceptable. But what can we do then?
Yeah.
And I don't think I've got, I don't think anyone has all of the tidy solutions or answers, but I know that the answer has something to do with reconnecting to the land in any way, shape or form. Colonization profits from disconnection between land and people, and it seeks to destroy those connections deliberately for profit. So anything that we do that maintains our connection, like knitting, you know, because these fibres, you know, come from the earth. Don't get me started on whether it should be cotton or like, you know, the you know, wool and farming and industry and all of those things. It's complex. It's really, really complicated.
That's a whole other.
It's super complicated.
Yeah.
And where I come back to is around reverence. It's like, if you value something, you will take care of it. You will not waste things. You know, like, I think all of us who makers, you know, we value things and don't like waste. Like,
I know.
Let's not even talk about like all
No,
the
all
stuff
the
that
nuggets,
we keep.
the
We
nuggets,
keep it.
the nuggets. Yes,
You
but
know?
then how many of us have made scrap projects to use up the leftovers?
You can't throw it away. Like it's just offensive.
I can't even throw away my ends. I literally have a bag full of all my ends. I call them Ponty Guts.
Ponty Guts.
My mascot that I'm a terrible mascot mum. I've lost two now, but I lovingly, when I had them and was making them, I just called them Ponty Guts because he's adventuring without me somewhere. I'm sure he's causing mischief in the world, both of them. But yeah, the innards were yarn ends.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
And eventually I'll make some cushions.
Like this.
Yeah, but with yarn ends instead of stuffing.
See, we need to do that. I feel like this is something that we have in common is the offensiveness of waste, and I think I've come to understand that better through how long it takes to make things. And there'll be people out here who spin, who work with the fibre from
Scratch.
From its source origin, all the way through to its worn garment. And probably people who've knitted stuff out. I'm Mihi to all of you people on here who like, oh God, I'm not satisfied with that jersey. It's coming out, and I'm going to make something else. Like those are the masters, I think. Those makers out there who are like, oh, I should be doing more for the climate and all of that. I feel like we should acknowledge and continue to do the things that value everything that is connecting tangata to whenua. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, do art and make things and end colonialism. Those are the solutions. Climate action. Sorry, I can't come to work today because I'm knitting. This is my connection to whenua.
I don't. Yeah.
No, it's oversimplified, but there's I believe it though.
No, that's just it, right? Like, there's often we joke about, can't work because I can't work on my crafts because I have to go to work or I have to do these things. It's like, it's just colonization gets in the way of crafting.
I know, and it's healing. So the work that gets in the way, the paid work because we have to live to survive. These are the first things, shelter and food and water. It's real, paying rent, paying mortgage, having the privilege of the security of having somewhere to live. It takes over, and it continues to drive the disconnection, which impacts our spiritual and emotional health. And I talk about that in the book as well. I mean, it's a core part of the book, I would say, is how do we heal at the same time as we're subject to forces beyond our control that continue to force us to submit to the system that is harming us actively. So yeah, in that sense, I feel like these things are, I hope I'm trying to and continually trying to improve my ability to name it as that, because I think we know it, a lot of us know it. Like this is bad for my health. All these things are bad for my health, but I have to do them. And these things that are good for my health, making and craft and art and all of these things, I feel guilty for doing them, or I don't have time to do them, or how long this? Gosh, when did I even start this? Last year, Sleeve Island. Gosh, Sleeve Island. There was one point. My niece. Maybe. I'm just looking at the time, but there's this beautiful story that's lovely to tell. Is about when my brother passed away, and we were, thrust together in this most awful, in the midst of the most awful circumstances, and we were a whānau that had been estranged from each other. Darren was estranged from his 4 children when he passed away. And 2 of his children came to live with us when he passed away, and we all lived together, myself, my 3 children. It was the midst of COVID. My mum, there were so many of us living under one roof and not enough rooms. We just had mattresses in different parts of the house, and everywhere someone slept different. Like, it was just a like free for all, first in first served kind of thing. And teenagers, you know, these are teenagers. There was some part of this that was, I was like, you know, there were things going on in the house that I didn't know about in terms of alliances and stuff. And, you know, it was hard, but I was there being like, we're going to be nice to each other, and everybody's going to stop talking about bad stuff that we were feeling. And I was like, we're going to knit a blanket. We did. We knitted this enormous blanket. And everybody needs to just shush and make art. And we'll go to rock and roll on the weekends. I was just taking, that had taken over this knowledge that we needed to not talk about it. My brother died by suicide, and it rips a family apart, and often it's the words and the ways that people need to process. And I was like, nobody say anything, just here's a crochet hook for you, and you know. And so we made stuff together. And my niece now, to get to the story, my niece now, she's left-handed. Mihi, to you left-handed knitters out there, very hard to learn how to knit. She would actually knit backwards, you know. It was a real challenge for her to learn to knit. I taught her the Portuguese method. She mastered it, but not quickly, let me say. She had to be so determined. And now she will message me, and she has become the person in her office who's teaching everyone else to knit.
Yes, I love that.
She teaches everyone else to knit, and also sometimes she'll ring me and be like, so-and-so, she's really, I don't know if she's going to get it, you know. She's like, and I'm like, you were like that. And anyway, so recently, the reason I'm stuck on Sleeve Island is because recently that niece, who's so much like me, I went to stay with her, and all her projects, she did, like we all have a stash of unfinished projects. Yes. And I took them home with me. Just the winning auntie. I took home all her 4 projects that were stuck on one sleeve left, and I finished them for her. We knit the similar tension because I taught her, and it's beautiful. But I haven't seen them back yet.
Of course.
So yeah, that's a little nice story. Knitting and healing.
Yes, I think that's a nice way to see this out. So
yeah, sorry we did go over.
Oh, don't be sorry.
It was nice to get to know your little community.
Yeah, no, so thank you for sharing with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
on your little podcast show.
I don't want to call it podcast.
Okay.
I think I've been mulling over how I'm going to tagline it, because like podcast is the most easy way to describe what this is.
Yes.
But I'm not going to be on any podcasting platform like you're finding us on YouTube. Yeah. So yeah, we'll roll that out at some point. We just genres are, let's smash the genres. Let's smash binaries. Let's smash all of that stuff. Make it original. That's the one. That's the plan. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna find the off button now. Thanks for joining us.